Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? We're gonna check out one of the Art Adams X-Men annuals today, and Jay's back for another go. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Good. Glad to be talking about this comic.
Yeah. You've got a bit of a history with this one. You were saying, or at least it was kind of formative for you.
I love this comic. I bought it off the newsstand, which I
Yeah,
guess was 87.
I think it says
Um
88.
88. So
Yeah.
1988 I got this thing. It was at a variety store. I think I remember like seeing it and then having to go home and get money from my parents. Um but like can
You
you
didn't have
like
the 225 on you?
I, I didn't have 225. Yeah, exactly. 225
Yeah.
Canadian. Can you imagine? It's just amazing to think that you could buy like a big thick X-Men comic like written
Yeah.
by Claremont and drawn by Art Adams at a variety store. Um,
Yeah. It was good days.
those good old days. But I loved Art Adams and I loved this comic. And when I knew you were thinking about doing it, I had to jump on this one.
Yeah, no, this was one of the ones because I remember you've talked about this one a bit previously, just about how much you do enjoy this one. It's an interesting one because I this is one of the first. I think this is the first of the crossover annual events they did, the Evolutionary War.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of getting like a small snippet of. It's not even really like an overall or arching storyline. I don't think it's just there's a chapter one and there's a chapter whatever at the end, and then everybody else you just kind of do your thing, I think. And there
Yeah,
was
I didn't particularly care about the crossover like per se,
yeah,
but to encounter this on a newsstand when you were, I was maybe like 10 years old at that point, and it's this big supersized annual. It's like
mhm.
it's a cool cover. Like it looks like important shit is happening. There's like X babies. Like it felt like for to my 10-year-old self, it was like an event comic.
Yeah, no, I could see that. And this is one of four annuals that Art Adams did. You do them like every other year, and you just get this big whack of Art Adams X-Men art, and that's like all the X-Men he did, I think. Like a little bit more here and there. Like I know he did those two X Factor issues,
Yeah.
but like I don't know. Art Adams is kind of classified as like a classic X-Men artist sometimes, and he didn't really do a whole lot.
He didn't, and it's interesting because like he didn't do a lot. He did a couple of there's that classic image. You might have to edit it in.
I think you're talking about the one off of Classic X-Men #1.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's so iconic.
that was fucking everywhere.
That was I probably a t-shirt, like that was just such an iconic image, and it was almost like it was maybe the most iconic image of the X-Men since like the Byrne era or something.
It
And
might be the most iconic one ever
it might be the most iconic one ever. Like I
yeah.
I, I think probably more iconic than anything like
These days.
Lee
Yeah,
did.
yeah. It's like he didn't do a lot of it, but he did the best version of the X-Men.
Yeah, it's almost like if you had to rank like X-Men artists, like
Hmm.
everyone, would maybe shuffle it different ways, and maybe John Byrne is number one, like the Beatles are number one or something, but it's not like maybe the most interesting choice, and Sylvester's in the mix and whatever.
Yeah,
Like it's almost like Art Adams did so little, that maybe he almost transcends the list. He's like the platonic idea of an X-Men artist, but he just
yeah.
did, like he's sort of like your dream X-Men artist, but he did almost none of it.
Yep, absolutely.
Um, and I think part of the appeal for me at that age was that he almost out of the gate, Art Adams had this like mythic vibe. Like he there was almost a legend about him by the time I got this annual. And there's this Marvel Age interview that I think came out a year later, which we can talk about at some point. But like
Yeah.
he was very young when he gave this interview. but already there was I just remember having the sense even back then that this guy was super special, but you were not going to get many comics from him.
Right. Well, this is this isn't too long after he first breaks in, even, because the first thing he does in comics is the Long Shot miniseries, I think, right?
Yeah,
and that's like 1985.
That's right.
Like 3 years later. Although I think he had a long runway. He might have started in 1984, but still, he's not been in the industry for a long time at all at this point.
He's not, and I mean, if you're, your viewers, if they're interested, this is, I've got this Marvel Age, much read, much cherished. I loved Marvel Age back in the day, which was, like it's sort of touted as the quote official Marvel news magazine. This is issue 71,
right?
50 cents. Came out in 89.
Oh, okay, so it's not like full price or anything.
Not full price, but man, I tell you, I read the hell out of these things. There was usually like a Fred Hembeck comic strip, which I kind of loved. And what was cool about this issue,
that sounds about right.
Yeah, what was neat about this issue is this issue 71 had a Mobius on the cover. It was probably the first time I encountered Mobius, another kind of mythic artist, right? And then in the same issue you have Art Adams giving an interview, and I poured over this magazine because there was no internet back then, right? So you sort of seized on these like scraps of info, and even just to have an Art Adams interview that had a couple of, it had a couple of images and stuff, and to hear about his process and to hear about how he broke in, it was kind of a revelation. But even in this interview, he sounds very young.
Yeah.
And a couple of things I'll just say very quickly because we've got to get to the comic. But he says at one point, the first issue of Longshot took me 8 months to draw, which is not good.
No, not so much.
but Louise Simonson, who was the editor on Longshot, was very nice to me. Laughs. Yeah. The second issue went much faster.
That's good. Only like 3 or 4 months, maybe.
So that was like that was a nugget that stayed with me.
Yeah.
Two other things that are of interest in this interview is he talks about a whole bunch of projects that I think never happened. He talks about like
I can see that.
Yeah, like there is a lot of discussion in this interview about like a follow-up Longshot series, like and ideas that him and like Ann Nocenti have for it, and they are talking about this thing like you're gonna see it in 8 months or something. They don't say that, but like you get the sense that this is like happening.
Yeah.
And he has all these original character designs that didn't get used in the first series, and like doesn't come to pass. He talks about an Avengers graphic novel written by Walt Simonson with dinosaurs. Yeah, sounds like a dream lost project. I don't think that ever happened.
No, I don't think so. I can totally see that. We're just like, oh yeah, people get the idea of why don't we get Art Adams doing this, and you come up with some awesome idea. And yes, that would be amazing if Art Adams could get it done, in a reasonable amount of time, or anything else done in a reasonable amount of time. I don't think he can,
But it's so tantalizing. But the third thing, that's really interesting in this interview is that he references like the latest X-Men annual that he worked on, being the first annual on which he felt almost like a pro.
Which was this one, right?
And it's this one.
Yeah,
it's this one because they talk about the X babies. Anyways, it was he even then, he at that young age, he already seemed like this guy who was producing this really precious product, but like in such small quantity,
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, so kind of had to treasure whatever you got.
Yeah.
Just I thought an interesting little digression. Just the fact that a few years later than this, I don't know if you ever collected the Marvel trading card series.
I did. I did, and the X-Men ones too.
Yeah. Series 2 has an awful lot of Art Adams art in there. Like there's maybe like a couple of dozen Art Adams cards in there. And I'm just thinking about all of these dream projects that would have been nice to get Art Adams working on. And he's like, yeah, that'll be awesome. But I just got to draw Fin Fang Foom here for the next like 3 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay, we should get into this here. So, yeah, this is going to be the Evolutionary War. This is, what is the word? So, this is set in the Outback era of the X-Men, which I don't know anything about. I never really read any of that stuff. I imagine you probably did, though.
I have tons of that stuff, like
the Silvestri stuff.
Yeah, where people thought they were dead, and I loved that era.
Yeah. And that's going to be a thing in here. Like I was reading it. It's like, oh yeah, they think they're all dead in this. So who we got? We got Chris Claremont writing. Chris Claremont doesn't need to take any time out of his schedule. Apparently, to write an annual. He was writing like 3 or 4 books at a time sometimes. Art Adams penciling, of course. Bob Wyacek inking, which is an interesting one. And Glynis Oliver coloring, which is good. And Tom Orzechowski lettering, also good.
Yeah, great lettering. There's some great lettering in this, actually.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed in this, because I have 3 of the Art Adams X-Men annuals, 3 of the 4. The first one he did was X-Men Annual number 9, and that's this one here, where they go off to Asgard. And in this one, the line work is extremely tight. This is 1985, so it would be like, man, yeah, like he probably just finished the Long Shot series or was in the middle of it. And
those team shots are also iconic on that first page.
These were in these got used in the Marvel Series 1 trading cards, actually.
They're in this interview too. Like they're just iconic.
They're amazing. And like you see the amount of detail he's putting out every page, so much that you can't see it all because it starts to bleed together. It's just too much detail, and I can't imagine how long he worked on this thing. On the new one, he's opened up a fair bit. So I wonder, I think that might be a little bit what he meant about feeling more like a professional then. Because there's a lot of space in here.
You're right, and I think I think that's just like it's an unoriginal observation, but I think just as you get more confident, you lean less on the crutch of filling every square inch, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he would have, as he was saying in his interview, it took him 8 months to do this first issue, and then maybe I wonder how long it took him to realize, oh yeah, no, you don't have forever to make these things.
Yeah.
Realizing that, we need to do the things quicker, which means less sweating over every little thing, less line work, less ink, more just economical use of ink.
Yeah, and I also think he probably wasn't helped by the fact that I think Longshot was like one of Ann Nocenti's first comics.
Oh, okay.
And she was like she was packing a ton of content into every page.
Okay, yeah.
And so he was drawing.
Yeah, there's a lot of panels on those pages, I think.
Yeah, they're super dense. So, but you're right though. Like to say, it's a great opening splash page, and it does have some room to breathe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we get our gigantic hero shot of Storm to start with, which is always nice.
Don't you love the old Marvel convention of when they would like put the credits in the illustration?
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, no, it is, and just get a big. Yeah, I don't know. You don't always see it, so when you start things off with a big splash page, that's big and impressive to kind of grab your attention. That's always nice too.
Yeah.
And so yes, in this one, Storm is racing off, furious about something, and the X-Men don't know what the deal is, but they got to try and basically just follow her. They can't really track her for a little while, and so yeah, they're just gonna basically follow her to figure out what the problem is for this particular issue.
I love the sharp detour in her I don't know, her vapor trail.
Oh, this here, this kind of thing.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the Walt Simonson kind of thing, where he does like more acute angles for any kind of path. It does look great.
I do have to say though, there's a lot of detail on that balcony.
I was just thinking, like, he's not being too efficient here, really, because this is all kind of unnecessary. All like he's doing like the iron work in here, and just putting in a little bit extra detail on everything down here below. Everything has more than you need, and then I think by the time we get to the end of the story, that will mostly go away.
I love it. I know it's totally unnecessary.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
I fucking love that balcony.
But it's like he can't help himself,
Mm-hmm. No, it's true.
Yeah, and then same here, really. This is just the X-Men tracking Storm down, really. I just kind of always an interesting era for Rogue here, kind of an in-between one, and I love his version of her. But this I don't know, satellite room that's somewhere in the X Mansion, like this thing is ridiculous.
I stared at this. I've stared at this a lot.
Yeah, I can see it, and like there's perspective going on in here. I don't think I could do it. There's too many weird angles and weird, just I don't know, surfaces and everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's kind of impressive about it. Like there is perspective, but he makes it. He's not. It doesn't look like an amateur's attempt at perspective because it's messy. Like there's all this like stuff everywhere.
Yeah, you see stuff like they're doing repairs on one of the panels here. And there's all sorts of just like, I don't know, little tools and stuff lying all over the place. There's all sorts of weird details everywhere, like just little panels and everything.
How long do you think it took him to pencil that page?
I have no idea how fast he works. I mean, too goddamn long, probably.
It's a lot of work.
But that's the benefit of the annuals, right? Is it's kind of outside of continuity, so you don't have the same kind of schedule.
Yeah,
and you can just like, okay, like in 5 months we're gonna need this thing done. Let's get art started on it now.
Mm-hmm.
And he probably needed it all. So they figured out Storm's trail is leading to Antarctica. It was Antarctica, not the Arctic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only reason for anybody to go to Antarctica is to go to the Savage Land and get this nice like hologram imaging kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, and I like the way he's rendered the kind of intense light. That would actually play beautifully in black and white. Like you almost, you know what I mean? Like it.
This one here with Gateway.
Yeah, it reads as bright. Same on the few pages ago when Dazzler is sort of like is flying upwards. Like he's got some good lighting.
Yeah, and I like the amount of rendering in here. Again, it's calling back a little bit to that earlier X-Men Annual where it's like this very tight lines, but not so tight that you lose any definition.
Yeah.
So he really is picking things up here.
He's the kind of artist that can be helped by a colorist, because if you flip the page when they're looking at the holographic Earth, if you go forward, like that could be that's a dense panel, but the coloring
potentially
the coloring picks it's so smart that it goes with it's just going with that kind of several shades of pink.
Yeah.
And it really, it moves some details to the back, brings others to the front,
Yeah, it's kind of a classic color separation with like just a single uniform color for the background, and then the light one here for the foreground, and then a different one for all the figures.
So if you're going to be hyper detailed, like your colorist can clarify things, right?
Yeah, just kind of so nothing gets lost in the details. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call. So where are we? We're on page 7, and we're already, but it's a 64-page issue, so we got plenty of time. They're going straight to the Savage Land.
Skip the last story. It's not the last story is nothing.
Yeah, honestly, I read like a page and a half of that, and I tapped out.
Yeah, I didn't finish.
Apparently, it's there was a chapter of that in every issue in the annuals.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of out of sequence. Yeah, but I like this close-up of Gate to to close things off after he teleports everybody to the Savage Land here.
I was gonna say he doesn't. Art Adams doesn't go in for big close-ups a lot, so when he does, like, they have impact.
It's true, yeah. Usually you get kind of this like mid-range kind of shot.
Yeah.
Or, he does a very good small version of faces as well. Like, probably a lot better than a lot of people, actually.
I was, when I was reading this, I was marveling at like how small some of the figures are, and they all hold up.
And his figure work is like just amazing.
Yeah.
I just like the weight of everything. So they teleport here to the Savage Land, and the Savage Land is gone. Something has completely demolished it. They destroyed everything, burned it to the ground. And again, another one, a very large open panel with not a ton of line work. There's some rendering in the clouds and everything. Not nearly as much on the mountains here as I would expect.
It probably got him back on schedule.
Maybe, yeah. Okay, so they're able to find a little bit of residue. Okay, so this was a village of the Fall People, which the X-Men were familiar with. And it's been completely destroyed. And there's just ashes and a few bone fragments. So Longshot is one of his abilities is like sense memory kind of stuff. So he's able to take one of the bone fragments and essentially just see how somebody died. And yeah, they just see this stampede of dinosaurs because, of course, that's the deal with the Savage Land. And then a giant robot basically came through and incinerated everything. And that's all Longshot can see. Always interesting to see Art Adams doing Longshot, since he basically, he came up with his look, right?
Yeah, it's his. I think he says in this Marvel Age interview that he feels like that's his character. Like,
yeah, like maybe more than anything else that in the X-Men.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Longshot was like,
him and Mojo.
Yeah, him and Mojo. I think Longshot was like a super popular character until Gambit. Like, I think Gambit like replaced him or something.
I can see that.
But
Gambit is kind of similar, only more edgy.
Yeah,
and he smokes.
That's right. What I like about Longshot is that he's sort of sweet,
Yeah, he's like naive.
Yeah, he's kind of like, he has sort of a positive attitude. Don't you love those fucking dinosaurs on that panel?
They're pretty great. It's interesting. They're because I've seen Jim Lee do dinosaurs, and there are some similarities. You can see a lot of stuff. Like, every once in a while, you see stuff that other artists, like the Image guys, have kind of snagged off of Art Adams here. Like, just like some of this face construction Jim Lee takes on later on, like in the 260s, I want to say, early 270s.
Totally.
Yeah. There's a few things like facial expressions that you can see that Liefeld takes, usually when people are grinning or something. But
yeah, and we'll talk about this some more as we go. But like, he's one of, like, along with Michael Golden, he's one of those touchstones for the Image guys.
Yeah,
and yet they take like none of the best lessons from Art.
Not really. Well, all they can take is the surface stuff, and the rest of the stuff takes a lot of study. It's all the construction kind of stuff, right? And composition, which takes a long time to learn. Or you got to have something intrinsic, which like Silvestri has. Guys like Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane, yeah, maybe a little bit here and there, but not nearly to the same degree, I don't think.
Yeah, they don't have the storytelling chops that Art Adams has.
No,
and you just, as you flip through this, the density of panels, you just wouldn't see that in your typical Image comic. Like, these are amazing panels, but he's not as concerned with those anchor shots. And he's not as concerned with selling them, I don't think. The pages. Yeah. He wants to sell the comic. He doesn't necessarily want to sell the art.
Well, I feel like it wouldn't have been as much of an option back here, because right when the Image guys were getting popular, when they were still in Marvel, was the big auction that kind of surprised everybody for how much everything was going for, right? So I feel like that kind of, I don't know, just changed a lot of changed direction for a lot of guys.
And maybe ruined a lot of talents
I think so.
in a way. What the other thing I'll say about that very last panel on the second page there, I love he's a good cartoonist.
Yeah.
And he's great. Dazzler's sort of like fun to watch throughout this issue. And she's got these like Looney Tunes arms going in.
Oh yeah, with the spinning and everything. Yeah.
And it's fabulous, especially with the lettering behind it. Like it's the kind of thing that it's the kind of thing that it's something that the image artist didn't take. And it's
yeah, like gesture, that kind of thing. No.
Yeah, it's like acting, and it's like no, that's the thing they didn't take, and it's like it's the thing that like there's other examples of that throughout this comic. The story is whatever; it's like a kid's comic, but like the art is so great, and the way he always has characters doing interesting things in the background that are. I don't know if that was necessarily in the plot or whatever. Like but he's adding those little cartoony touches, and they're just fun.
Well, I think it is a consideration of his that just, if you're going to have somebody in the background, you can't have them just standing there in a Liefeld pose, right?
That's right.
They've got to be doing something. Yeah. The only guy I would say does manage to do that of the image guys is Silvestri. But again, with him, I think it's intrinsic.
That's right.
He just has an instinct for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we get our introduction to the High Evolutionary, at least in this storyline. Kind of a cool design. I think he's more of a Silver Age villain. Got introduced in like Avengers and Fantastic Four and stuff. And I think this is the kind of thing he would do throughout this crossover where he had something evolution-y he was trying to do. In this case, he's trying to restore the Savage Land. And he gets patty caked by some unseen robot. Very likely the one that incinerated the town there, the village. So that's it there. That's Terminus. That's a big old splash page.
Yeah, I mean, there's that's maybe the kind of shit the image guys were looking at.
Yeah, it's funny because it doesn't have the same impact as some of the other stuff in here, for me anyway. Like it's a cool shot, but like doesn't have the same deal. Maybe part of it is the character design.
It's funny. You almost feel like, oh man, like I just want like 9 dense panels, like.
That'd be kind of awesome, with really tight line work in it. Yeah, that would be better, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so Terminus reveals himself. So he was buried under the dirt. I've read a little bit about what the hell Terminus was because I don't know. He was I think he's an invention of Galactus, I want to say. I could be remembering that completely wrong, but anyway. He was an old FF and Avengers foe, and they were supposed to have killed him at some point, and they thought they had buried him in the Savage Land, I think. So he really hadn't appeared very much before this. And so the X-Men are trying to take him out, but they're not able to make much progress against him. His armor's way too tough for them. But we're going to get to see the X-Men in action at least. So that's really all that matters.
I always liked how I like how Dazzler has her power has its own kind of particular
signature.
Yeah, that little geometric look, and then Havoc has his own.
Yeah.
I always enjoy. It's almost like they're all branded differently.
Yeah, no, you can if you had to do tiny drawings of each of them, you could still tell which is which because of it.
I was gonna say it's a good coherent little fight scene because it's sort of.
It is pretty quick, isn't it?
It's quick, but they all make their attempts and they all kind of fail. It's sort of fun watching, Longshot throws his blades, they bounce off, Wolverine tries to claw it, they heal. Like it's again, it's hard not to think of the image guys where the fights are meaningless.
Yeah, it's just punch, punch, punch. There's no real differentiation.
Yeah.
Where this is what keeps it interesting, yeah. And so the fight is finished by Storm cooking up a gale force wind, which blows him over into the mountainside and buries him. Do we see that in here? No. But yeah, we got to see all of our characters using their powers. Like even Colossus, who doesn't have any kind of, long range thing he can do. At least he can block out somebody here.
Yeah, and if you're reading all of Claremont's words, like he's explaining everything to you anyways, so you don't have to worry.
My armor is proof against your primitive weaponry. It's like his blades, baby. but nothing can withstand my adamantium claws. Yeah, no, it's the amount of words in here is impressive, I gotta say, and is important because it keeps you on the page, just like looking at all that line work.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, anyway, Terminus is defeated for the moment, at least, and we get one of these kind of impressive shots of just like 10 people standing around, looking like they should all be there. Like that is kind of tough to do. I have no idea how to do these myself.
Yeah, and it's not the like, again, it's not the like Liefeld or Jim Lee like pose, dynamic poses. They're all sort of they're all kind of, they all have business,
Hang on a second. You mean like this?
Yes.
That's so fucking bad.
Amazing.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so good. But you know what? There was a part of me that loved that once.
Yeah.
Very briefly. Very briefly.
I know. It's so weird. Oh.
But what's great about it, it's also like, Wolverine is shorter than everyone else. Colossus is a bit bigger.
Yep.
It's very thoughtful, that little panel.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, everybody is in proportion properly. Mm-hmm. And you can see like there is a ton of detail in the figure work, like with all the bands on High Evolutionary here, just all the musculature and everything. With the size of these figures, like, I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised to see them almost be silhouettes, but like Art Adams isn't going to do that shit.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're talking with the High Evolutionary, who is still around. We haven't seen him since he got clapped. And he's kind of a good guy in this one. I always got the impression he was more of a villain, but again, that's most of my knowledge of the High Evolutionary is from the Marvel trading cards. So, and let's see, Longshot's going to go for a bit of a wander, and he manages to fall through like a dimensional gateway here, which is a very Longshot kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a fun little 3-4 panel thing. It's nice how that happens. It's not like animation. So
yeah, a little bit. Do I even need to talk about what's going on in here?
I don't think so.
No, not so much.
Havoc's checking out his base and his like flies. I like the fly cycle. Like I like that as a word.
Yeah, that's a little different.
But yeah, man, even that little painting in the bottom corner of the High Evolutionary's friends, like even that, like I wonder what that looks like on the original artboard. It's the coloring, the registration doesn't quite do it justice, but man,
no, and you're probably losing a little bit of like in the blow up.
But the detail, like fuck,
there's a fair bit. And here we get introduced to I believe this is Zaladane, who does show up later in at the end of the Jim Lee run, actually.
Doesn't that look like a Jim Lee Image style woman? Like, man.
Yeah, I could see it.
Like it just has that vibe.
Yeah. And not too far off from the version he would do. Yeah, in like, I don't know, a couple of years worth. And we get some very expressive Dazzler faces here, which I really love.
She's so fun how he handles her throughout the whole thing. Like, it's just amazing.
Yeah, he gives her a little bit of extra time, I guess because she is kind of connected to Longshot. So anyway, she's just noticing Longshot's gone missing, so everybody's got to kind of go looking for him. Okay, Rogue and Psylocke are going to the body of Terminus with Storm here, I think just to make sure he stays dead, essentially.
Yeah.
Wolverine and Dazzler are going to go searching for Longshot, and Wolverine stumbles right into the same dimensional rift that Longshot did and freaks Dazzler right out. Storm has this cameo crystal that glows when I believe this is linked to that the Savage Land village. I don't know. But basically it says that it's telling her there may be some survivors from the village there that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting version of Rogue. Like just a bit more masculine with the gigantic poofy hair too.
Yeah, she looks like a bodybuilder,
a little bit
mag chick or something. She's but I like his Rogue.
Yeah, no, I don't mind it. It's an interesting to compare it to like his version of Dazzler, which is very feminine,
Yeah. Well, and also it's, he's giving the women he's giving all the characters seem individual.
Yes.
In a way that honestly, even like when you get to Jim Lee X-Men, the women start to they all have the same body type, and they become kind of interchangeable.
Honestly, I would say the Silvestri era too, where they're all kind of idealized. You don't get as much of this where they're just if you saw silhouettes, you could probably tell who everybody was.
Yeah, they're all different heights, I feel like, these seems like, on the one hand, if someone was just listening to this, they'd be like, well, of course. But like, when you look at what came after Art Adams, it like the nuance all got obliterated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is kind of a standard for Jim Lee, is that just all those guys look the same. So anyway, the X-Men are able to uncover the gateway because Dazzler helpfully stood right by it. So that's good. And we get this kind of giant flying wolf thing. I assume it's showed up before because Storm is familiar with it.
Yeah, some kind of Savage Land creature, I guess. Look at this. I love the snout and the scale of that. That's great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I think they reference Uncanny X-Men 122 or something like that, somewhere around there. But this is the village. This is where all the survivors have escaped to with this invisible portal. So that's handy. Including a child that is implied is Colossus's from this woman, Nareel. So
that's a great last panel is another one of those examples where there's like a ton of different little things going on.
Yeah. Everybody looks very natural.
Everyone's very natural, and everyone's got their own little agenda, and Longshot's talking to the kid, and Dazzler's like, what's going on? And like people are having these reunions, and like you would just never see that panel in like a 90s comic.
I can't imagine, because that's all Marvel method, right? And just like, can you imagine one of those guys even thinking about that?
That panel has like 5 pages of image story in it, like
kind of, yeah. And anyway, back at the rubble heap, Terminus wakes up and busts out. That's a better shot, actually. And Rogue has to snag Psylocke real quick, but she doesn't grab her quick enough because she gets swatted out of the air. See, swat. And they just kind of go flying off into the snow. That is some good stuff, actually. That's some nice movement.
Nice movement. Good lettering throughout. I feel like Zurak is like a blood force sound effect.
I could definitely use it. Sploof, I would definitely use for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fun. I mean, like you would use it slightly, like in a humorous way, but like it's just having fun. Like it's
Zurak for sure.
Yeah,
that's the sound of lightning hitting Terminus.
Yeah,
of course. So anyway, now that Terminus has reawakened and the village that he kind of turned into refugees are here on their gigantic flying wolf, they're going to direct him to attack Terminus now. So that's a cool visual to kind of ramp things up a little bit.
Can you go back one page quickly?
Yeah.
That face on that page, what's her name? I forget her name.
Oh, this one here?
It's such an amazing face.
It's a really good one.
It's so good.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think she's just the leader of the village. I don't remember what her name was now.
Yeah.
That's good.
You can see Jim Lee getting some of his faces from, especially on the next page too. See that same face. Or maybe the next one after that.
That kind of looks like it there a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's little bits all over the place, and just standard I don't know, stuff like this shot of Rogue here, and the way the legs are placed. It's like I can see Jim Lee going, okay, file that away.
Yeah. Oh, totally. If you go back a page too, where the dog I missed this one. That's a cool panel where go back that one there where it's like shooting that sort of like
ship. It's like a city or a village basically just all shooting at him as they fly by on their giant wolf.
It reminds you like this was sort of like an event comic, an annual, but like you have to remember like there were no you know, CGI hadn't been
Yeah.
perfected. It was like, you know, 1988. Like there were, you know, we are a long way off from like from good Marvel superhero movies.
Yeah.
This was it. Like this is how you got the IP was the comic book.
Yep.
And this, you know, this is like an epic battle. Like it's amazing.
Not only that, but there is a thing by, I don't know, by putting so much focus on the Marvel movies, there is a thing where they have to be more believable. Like, you know, because I don't know, you wouldn't have something like this here because this is just too ridiculous to put on film. You know?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it when I was, or I don't know, it kind of reminds me of going through the Walt Simonson Fantastic Four stuff. There's just too much stuff going on, and it's all kind of crazy. And it's like, okay, nobody is kind of making the jump here in I don't know, in the modern audience, because you just wouldn't be able to visualize it the same way.
Yeah, it's just like they're not, the movies they're not as fun as this.
No, well, they don't get as crazy.
Yeah,
because it has to happen in, you know, in a real world.
The one that did it for me was Thor Ragnarok, but where they were self-consciously trying to like just be funny and high speed and like
crazy. Yeah,
it was it was sort of, yeah, and they used a lot of improv in that movie, which generated a lot of like funny naturalistic lines. And it was like that when I remember seeing Ragnarok and thinking, man, I wish all the Marvel movies were more like this. Like, you know, like just
it was a lot more fun. Yeah.
You know?
And it's funny. Yeah, that is probably the most like zany of the Marvel movies.
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah. And you just like nothing else really comes too close, but it's like, oh, we should probably get more of that.
That's right.
So yeah, they're trying to go back to work on Terminus. They still don't really have a good way to do that though. Rogue flies in and she steals Longshot's luck power, which is cool. It's interesting because I don't know. I feel like I never saw a ton of that where she would like strategically use one of her teammates' powers, just in addition to her own flying and super strength and stuff. And that's the idea. So that she's just gonna like propel herself at Terminus's face here, wherever his armor has been weakened, and like instinctively fly towards that, and that's going to have a bigger impact, which is a cool idea for strategy, actually.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's fun. That's fun. It's sort of, it's zany. It's like his power is luck. Like,
yeah. They addressed that in the Deadpool 2 movie, where it's like, that doesn't make any sense. You know, it's not, you can't even visualize it. It's like, and then in the comics, no, he's lucky. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So piloting Terminus is, what is this, Garrock? The petrified man.
Yeah.
Who is a character where we're getting a few just obscure characters.
Yeah, like callbacks to these old guys. Yeah.
So yeah, she's able to shatter the faceplate, and she goes to try and drain him, but she says here he's like a bottomless well, which is interesting because I think the part of the deal with him is that he's like immortal. And yeah, Wolverine's gonna try and jump in here while Garrock is distracted and being drained, and see if he can get some work in on the robot. Hopefully, while the repair systems aren't functioning as well. I love every time Art Adams draws Wolverine. He's just so solid and and so fucking hairy and compact, and he takes into account things like where on the knuckles the claws would be. Like, I like the irregular spacing on the claws because of where we're looking in perspective.
Yeah,
he's done that a couple times.
Yeah, I feel like a lesser artist would try to space those more evenly.
Well, you never see it. You know, everybody always does that, where it's they're always, you know, maybe they're taking into account that it's on a different plane, but you never see them like that where there's like bumps along the back of your hand that might be splitting things up a little bit.
Yeah. Wolverine's almost like Puck. He's this little squat.
Yeah, same kind of proportions.
Yeah.
Another ultra hairy ex John Byrne character. I guess that is kind of one of the things John Byrne, like an indelible mark he left on the comic industry, was extremely hairy characters.
Fur.
Yeah.
Totally.
So they are able to finish off the Terminus robot. I love how it just kind of falls apart here at the end.
Yeah, I like the cloud collapses. It's great.
Yeah.
Good use of vertical panels.
Yeah, and it's not like it just falls over. It completely disintegrates pretty much. It's great shit. And at the end of it, Garrock has recovered his faculties, where he'd basically been imprisoned in the Terminus robot. They were saying it didn't make any sense for him to destroy the Savage Land because he loves the Savage Land. He's like this 15th century pirate or something, who got immortality and discovered that place and became more and more like he looks like basically one of their god idol kind of things, or grew to look like that over the years. So he loves the place now. And so he's gonna try and make amends by trying to restore the Savage Land with the High Evolutionary, who hasn't been in this issue too much at all, actually, leading up to this.
I like the kid beating on Colossus's head.
Yeah, the pang, pang, pang.
it's again, it's like I feel like this is the stuff that comics lost, in the 90s.
Yeah, a little, yeah. I mean, I think they do this from time to time still, where things get silly. It's just, I don't know. Every example I see, it's not the right type of silly for me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like his Colossus a lot too.
Yeah. No, I agree. So anyway, they're going to basically transfigure Garrock to replenish the Savage Land, because he is this bottomless well of energy just about. And we've got all the X-Men kind of standing around bearing witness. This room is maybe a little less detailed than the communications room at the beginning. Not too much more though.
No, I was just thinking the same thing. And again, the coloring kind of clarifies it all.
Yeah. I was kind of looking out a little bit to see if the detail falls off, and it's like a little bit, like maybe there could have been more like filigree on stuff like this. The balconies here, it didn't have to be just like flat panels and everything, but it's not a lot really. There's still a high definition here.
No, and then when you flip the page with the dinosaurs and the village, like it's a good.
Yeah,
I think he keeps it up.
One thing I just want to note that we get Zaladane here, who of course is the apprentice of the High Evolutionary, and I think she knows that he's basically going to abandon the place after he's done restoring it, and they're going to try to rule the Savage Land, which kind of ties directly into what goes on. I want to say around Uncanny X-Men 274, when like Rogue and Magneto are there, and which we have already covered, or I have already covered in previous revisits. So it's just interesting when it's like, hey, I know where that's going. Yeah,
it all fits together.
Yeah. There's our Brachiosauruses there. Yeah, she does, and there's that woman again. She does have her own look. Like he does. It feels like maybe he puts a little bit extra on her faces. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
they're just very nicely proportioned. And Kazar, I keep calling him that. Kazar. That'll work. Reappears. It feels like maybe he does this every once in a while, where he just kind of shows up and expects everyone to kind of welcome him home, kind of thing.
It's a funny how he's got his arms spread out, and he's so good. Like Art Adams is so good with body language too, right? Like almost like comic body language.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's never any stiff. There's never any awkwardness with any of his characters. He always just kind of seems to get the right look down. And anyway, that's kind of it. So the X-Men head home, and the village is reestablished. The Savage Land is restored, and so happy endings all around. And from there, we're going to cut to a Mojo story. I'm not as big on the Mojo stuff personally.
I like this story though. I think it's fun.
It is okay. and because it's, I don't know, because I've seen Mojo do this exact same thing a few times later on. It's interesting in Marvel Comics Presents I want to say number 89. Well, it's one of like a couple of issues of that I had back in the day, and that has a very early Joe Mad story, like maybe like his second story ever, which is almost identical to this, where Mojo's pissed off because he's losing ratings, and in this case, it's because everybody thinks the X-Men are dead. And so, yeah, no, their story is complete, and they're just tuning into something else. And of course, on Mojo World, ratings equal power. So this will be the. Is this the end of Inferno? It might be. Where, I think that is it. Yeah, where that's where they basically sacrifice themselves, and Roma resurrects them.
Yeah.
But you know, the world thinks they're dead, and she makes them invisible to cameras and stuff. Just weirdly specific stuff. But yeah, anyway, they're going to spitball a bunch of ideas for how to get Mojo back on top in Mojo World. And we get the impression Major Domo is a fair bit more intelligent than Mojo, but just Mojo pulls out the strings. I can kill him at any moment. And Minor Domo here, which is his assistant, seems to keep having heart attacks. Because she has to go, you know, Major Domo has the ideas, and then Minor Domo has to motivate everybody to carry them out.
There's so much energy in her movements. Like,
yeah,
couldn't, the Image guys could not do that panel where she's look at all the angles of her.
Some of them could, like J. Scott Campbell is a guy who's very heavily influenced by Art Adams.
Yeah,
and
maybe
he would do this.
Maybe, yeah. I love her. I love the tongue sticking out like a.
Yeah,
it's such a great like dead robot face,
and
then
it's so over the top.
Yeah, and then she springs back up, and then you get all these like photorealistic like Innocenti and
Chris Claremont. I guess this is Tom Orzechowski here.
Yeah,
and this is, I guess, Art Adams, so he's taller than I would have expected.
Yeah, but
we know he's a ginger. And Chris Claremont, of course, is going to rail against Mojo. He says, I warned you. I said, go for quality, not quantity. But no, you just had to keep exploiting. And of course, he gets transported into, or kind of turned into a baby, transmogrified.
It's fun. It's a funny script. Like, I like the Innocenti character when she's just like, why don't you just get replacement X-Men? And then like idiot is like a little afterthought, like word balloon. And it's like, you just like wish they did a little bit more of this stuff than like the previous stories is so much more stilted because they have to like describe everyone's powers and everyone has to use their powers.
Yeah.
And it's just there's all the continuity and like this is just fun,
It is. That's true. And I don't know. This is a thing for me where it feels like the stuff Art Adams really wants to draw isn't quite the stuff I really want to read, but it is a lot of fun anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess this is Mojo's floating pirate ship headquarters, and but they're going to come up with ideas for replacement X-Men on this. This is some wild shit.
It's just like it's worth it. The price of the cover price is worth it just for these panels.
Yeah, I love the spotlight stuff going on here too. Like he's really thinking about how to show this with all the black here, but a little bit of detail in the spotlights.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That works really well. Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna start off our replacement X-Men with the X-Women because variation on a theme. He says, too predictable. It's like, yeah, maybe. But this is just gonna be the fun stuff where we see, okay, how about the X-Men as Transformers?
Oh, amazing.
it's pretty great. Good.
So cool. With the Havoc, with the Havoc helmet.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's pretty excellent. And he says no on that one. And we get them in like bondage gear and shit here.
Oh, it's fun. Like this is just it's like fanfic before there was fanfic. Like
pretty much. And this is I don't know, this face here, it feels like Rob Liefeld has lifted directly.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
100%. I feel like there's more Jim Lee from the previous story, but this, that is a Liefeld. That is a Liefeld.
Sure. Then we get the anthropomorphized X-Men with some some of the animals here are pretty well studied, like the otter here. And is that a skunk? I guess it would be a skunk for Rogue, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they're all exactly the right animal.
Yeah.
They're all exactly the right animal. Like, Dazzler's like Miss Piggy. Like, look at Wolverine. Like,
as the bulldog. And gigantic Gorilla Colossus is great too.
Art Adams had done around this time like a Gumby special that I think won awards. Like he has like that cartooning impulse, and you see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. And we get what you get the impression is hour after hour of Mojo just getting constant pitches with skinny X-Men, fat X-Men, giant X-Men, tiny X-Men, etc., as he becomes more and more homicidal. And eventually we get back to kind of familiar ground for Art Adams, which is the X-Babies. So these also showed up in X-Men Annual number 10, I think, including X-Baby Longshot, which is provocative for Mojo. but he does good kids.
He totally does, yeah. Like
the proportions and the faces and everything.
Yeah, like their bodies, they don't look like they don't look like mini people. They look like they have kid bodies. Like
yeah, like they're a little bit chubby. Like Dazzler here is like a little bit chubby.
Yeah.
It's great. And so Mojo just doesn't want anything to do with Longshot, so turns him into a photo. He's like, okay, sure. And then Dazzler gets to fret over the photo for the rest of the story. Rogue too, apparently, which is like, okay.
Well, because there's a bit of a love triangle thing going there, right?
Oh, is there? Okay, see, I wasn't even familiar.
Yeah, you see it a little bit in the previous story when like Rogue steals his power, like Dazzler's like sort of upset that she like,
right.
You know, like they have a little bit of a thing. But I love Wolverine when he's just like, now there's more girls on the team than boys.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like slightly dated here, but I find it funny.
It's like Goonies kind of stuff, you know.
It's totally funny. Like
yeah. So anyway, Mojo wants them all killed too because he's been killing every other version. Why not? So they make their escape. I guess and it just kind of turns into a Looney Tunes cloud of punching, while Rogue and Dazzler just wrestle over the Longshot photo,
which is perfect. It's great.
It is. It's pretty great.
And then the next panel on the next page is hilarious, where Wolverine's just like, he's like, oh, like I'm gonna miss the fight.
Yep. Yeah. So they do.
I would have loved like a series of these from Art Adams, but
you know what? That would have been pretty good.
Yeah.
But you know, like it's still, there is still some intensity to the line work, where it's probably going to take them a long time to do these, but you know, like just like 10 pages a month or every 2 months even, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean that's probably like it probably would lose its novelty, I guess, if you had too much of this.
I suppose, yeah. Like so, an X-Baby story once every 2 years, maybe that is appropriate.
Maybe that's enough, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they get rounded up by all the guards here. I do like how just like tiny and I don't know, unassuming they are. So yeah, they're all herded except for baby Wolverine, who managed to escape and get underneath Mojo here, and just I must, and hits him with his tiny baby Wolverine claws.
I love the mini claws. Yeah,
I like his teeth are kind of fucked up.
Yeah,
like little kid fucked up.
Yeah.
It's good. It's just a nice little detail.
Oh, totally. Even like just honestly, like the posture of him crawling under, and his butt is sort of up and his back is arched. Like it's very it's solid. Like it looks like it looks like a little kid crawling under something.
Yeah. No,
It's just
again, like he's just as good at this as the superhero stuff.
yeah, and there's no shortcuts, right? Like it's all the detail, everything looks believable.
Yeah, for sure. And the stab in the butt is kind of the end of the story. At the end of it, just like, okay, we hope you enjoyed that one. And Longshot's like, yeah, no, I'm just all better now. So like, bye. And then, yeah, that's how we're gonna end, I guess.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I like how that Yao is like 20% of the page.
Yeah.
That's a fun comic. We don't need to read this.
Not really. Although this is, if for anybody who's, I don't know, who cares, this is early Ron Lim, so that's almost interesting. I guess this is like Michael Golden or something. I remember seeing this ad a bunch.
Yeah, I like this ad.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I think that might be Michael Golden. Oh, that art's not very good. After like 60 pages of Art Adams, it's like, oh, don't put that in there.
You would never want to follow that.
No, man. That's just upsetting. The fact that Ron Lim managed to be successful after that's just, kudos to him.
Oh man.
So yeah,
well, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for this was like a nostalgia trip for me because
thanks for joining me, man. This was a fun ass issue. It's packed too.
It's packed, and there's just like, honestly, I feel like there's so much you could learn from this if you're, like you and I are both scratching away at stuff, and like,
oh yeah,
I feel like, Art Adams gets celebrated. I sometimes wonder if he's celebrated for the wrong reasons. Like he's celebrated like a Jim Lee or whatever as this great stylist. But man, like it's all there's so much good solid cartooning and storytelling. Like I think there's a lot you can learn from just looking at an X-Men comic. That story's fine, but man, like the pictures just carry.
It's just like peak X-Men stuff, really.
Yeah, totally.
Like you can't really beat this. And you want to be kind of depressed. You know how old Art Adams was at this time?
Oh,
in
man.
In 1988?
I think 24.
Just about, yeah. Probably 24 when he drew this. 25 and 88.
Oh, incredible.
It's just like, fuck's sake, man. For real? Like, he's fully realized at this point, too. Like, the 1985 stuff, when he's, like 20, 21, there's a little bit of awkwardness to, like, some of the proportions here and there. Not a lot. Fuck's sake. Can you imagine, like, some 20, 21-year-old kid drawing this shit?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's upsetting.
But I think you're right that this is a couple years later, and he's pulled back just enough.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more breathing room, and some of the like the panels with Gateway and stuff. That man, this really I feel
it is mature in a lot of ways.
It's well, and again, he said in that at Marvel Age, like this is where he felt like he was, like a proper comic book artist, and man, it's like I think you're right. I think it's like peak X-Men. It's peak Art Adams. Like,
yeah, like this is the stuff you think of because like not too long after this. I feel like he takes a bit of a hiatus, and then when he comes back on like America's Best Comics, it's like it's not quite right.
The Monkey Man and O'Brien
stuff. Yeah, that too. That's like around 94, I think, 95 maybe. Yeah, it's like after I don't even know what the last thing he would have done after Marvel. I don't know. I feel like there hasn't been anything that's really felt definitive for him like this has.
It's funny what you say that too. Like he did when I think back, it is a bit like he took a hiatus and then came back, and it was like it almost like he missed his moment or something.
Well, I don't know if he really did because again he never produced a ton of work because he's always worked super slow. But I mean, Art Adams is still one of the biggest names, right? So like whatever he would have done at a very slow pace. I feel like he managed to hit at just the right, at least the right time where he could make the most impact for the least amount of work and like get himself cemented in the Hall of Fame essentially. And I think now he mostly does like commissions, and he'll do the odd cover every once in a while. He does these awesome reimaginings of like classic covers where he expands on them.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of amazing stuff. You should look at that stuff up sometime.
Yeah, I've seen. I should take a look at that. I see some of his current stuff, like on, I don't know, I guess on Instagram or whatever. It's okay. Like, it has a kind of.
It's still very nice. It's still very solid, and it's still very detailed.
Very clean.
Oh yeah.
Very cartoony. Little hint of, like, maybe like 15% like manga kind of.
Yeah.
In there.
Maybe that's it. Is that it's just a bit more cartoony than I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's great about this comic is that it's almost like there's a perfect little balance achieved, and he's got just the right amount of the cartoony with a little bit of that kind of photorealist tradition. Like, it's a nice sweet spot for him and for X-Men.
I think you're right. Yeah, I agree. I think this is probably the best X-Men art just about. Okay, so yeah, that's gonna do it for Uncanny X-Men Annual number 12. Thanks again, Jay, for dropping by. That was awesome.
That was fun.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks again for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next one's coming out. Go over and subscribe on my Patreon. That'll give you access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions, and you can join the Blood Force Discord server. Do you want to maybe plug anything, or?
No, I'm doing an ongoing comic strip in a Canadian literary magazine called CNQ. Strip's called The Pig-Headed Soul. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's about it for now.
No, that's fun stuff too, and I don't know, just drawing on as much craft as you can in a very short space, as far as I've seen there, which is great shit to see.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm gonna go now, and I don't know, man. Like give up after looking at this comic, but
yeah, we all could, really.
It is inspiring stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and again, if you want to figure out just how to draw like pretty much anything, Art Adams is a pretty good, well-used resource. So yeah, anyway, that'll do it. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.